You and 7 others have the fate of one young woman in your hands. You never wanted this kind of responsibility, but now you have no choice but to choose whether she lives or dies. Even though it's hard to imagine she would be capable of such a heinous crime, there's no debate in your group. She did it. However, some of your fellow jurors worry that she could have done it in self-defense, that she was actually a victim herself. But as far as you're concerned, after what she said in court today, there is no redemption for a person like her. You firmly believe that the only suitable justice is death. In true crime, male perpetrators are a dime a dozen, which is perhaps why the crimes of their statistically rarer female counterparts have stood the test of time. But when it comes to Jodi Arias, well, she's just one of those cases you don't forget. Born and raised in California, Jodi dropped out of high school to pursue a career in photography with a specific interest in one category of subject.
People and their expressions, moments, especially weddings when, you can just see expressions on people's faces and emotional moments. I love capturing that sort of thing.
However, following her aspiration wasn't paying the bills, and neither was her waitressing gig. So Jodi found another source of income as a salesperson for the network marketing company Prepaid Legal, a career that would lead her to crossing paths with a person who would change the trajectory of her life forever.
He is a single gentleman, so women, he's single. Please help me welcome to the front of the room, Mr. Travis Alexander.
Travis Alexander was a man who was never under any illusion that life would be easy. His parents, who both suffered from addiction throughout his childhood, had failed to provide him and his 7 siblings with that cushy worldview as they learned to fend for themselves in a household where food was scarce and coddling non-existent. But then, with a change of scenery, came a change in perspective. At 11 years old, Travis moved in with his paternal grandparents, where his siblings later joined him after their father passed away in a car accident on Travis's 20th birthday in 1997. It was under his grandmother's guidance that Travis was introduced to the Mormon faith, a religion that would provide him with a moral compass that ultimately would prove no match for the charms of one woman. Skipping college, Travis found success as a motivational speaker and sales representative for Prepaid Legal. Eventually, this career path led Travis to relocate to Mesa, Arizona for further business opportunities and to be closer to the thriving Mormon population. Yet, despite ascending the ranks in his job, there was one part of Travis's life where he remained unfulfilled.
When I first started training and things like that, you can imagine the first thing I would hear a lot of was, by the way, he's single. And I'd be like, that's right, I am. Maybe you can get me. That's been going on for 6 years.
Yep, considering the scarlet letter that bachelorhood was in the Mormon community, as Travis neared his 30s, he was ready to put his single days behind him. And in September 2006, at a work conference in Las Vegas, Nevada, Travis believed he met the answer to his prayers: Jodi Arias. Beautiful, blonde, and intelligent, then 28-year-old Jodi seemed to be the full package.
One thing he always told me is that pretty girls are a dime a dozen, but it's what's on the inside that kind of makes people stand out.
And when the two stayed up until 4 a.m. that night talking, friends couldn't deny the potent chemistry radiating off of them, and neither could Travis.
The next morning, he tells me that he's found his wife, and this is the girl that he wants to marry.
As for Jodi, well, despite being in a committed relationship at the time, she seemed to return the intensity of Travis's feelings. So when they returned to their respective homes in Arizona and California, the two kept in contact through hour-long phone calls. And by February 2007, Travis and Jodi were officially an item. Still long distance, they traveled to various areas across the country to meet each other, taking inspiration from a New York Times bestseller to plan their adventures.
There's a book called 1,000 Places to See Before You Die. You know what I'm doing? Seeing them all.
And it was through this one-on-one time that Jodi's love for Travis grew.
Traveling with Travis was kind of like traveling with your own personal comedian and our serenader, or philosopher. He always, had great things to talk about that would make you think, and he was always bursting out in the song, and he was a very funny guy. So.
But as Jodi fell more deeply for Travis, her new beau was already experiencing cold feet. See, while Travis initially spoke highly of Jodi, even telling a friend that whoever was lucky enough to marry her would win the wife lotto, there was one major obstacle when it came to their relationship progressing. Travis was a devout Mormon, and as such, had planned to marry a Mormon woman. And Jodi, well, she wasn't that. In fact, the two had been sleeping together before marriage, something Mormonism is explicitly against. And despite Travis talking about the Book of Mormon with Jodi, sending missionaries to her house, and eventually even baptizing her into the faith,
it was emotional, it was spiritual, it was powerful. It's a feeling that, like, everything just comes right into alignment, and nothing can go wrong.
Their intimate encounters continued, and so did Travis's doubts. He confided in friends that Jodi, the woman he had once prophesied he would marry, was now no longer wife material.
Travis wanted to marry a virginal, pure Mormon girl. By having sex with him, Jodi eliminated herself as ever being marriage potential for Travis.
But then again, wasn't the only perceived trait in Jodi that had begun raising red flags, as captured in this video from an Oklahoma convention, where Travis recounted a robber pointing a firearm at him in chilling detail.
I'm seeing myself face down with blood, cold blood. Like, this is death. This is how you die. This is it.
Jodi was all over Travis all the time, and it wasn't long before that territorial streak verged on possessive. Yep, the once easy breezy girlfriend was now constantly looking over Travis's shoulder to see who he was texting, following him from room to room, and had even allegedly taken to hacking his email to forward messages from women to herself. And it was this behavior that led Travis's friends, Chris and Sky Hughes, to pull him aside when he and Jodi were at their house to express their concerns over the relationship. In a moment that would darkly foreshadow events to come, Sky confessed that he feared the relationship would end in tragedy one day. They'd find his remains in a freezer. That's when Sky suddenly had an eerie feeling that someone was listening in. She mouthed to Travis that Jodi was on the other side of the door, and when Travis pushed the door open, sure enough, there was Jodi, wearing a disturbing expression.
The look on her face was just, it was evil.
But by June 2007, before the relationship could stoop to new depths of toxicity, the two had split up. It was now time for both Travis and Jodi to heal and move on. The problem was, moving on wasn't so easy when they both lived in the same town. That's right. 2 weeks after they had broken up, Jodi moved to Mesa, Arizona, leaving the boundaries of the breakup blurred. Proximity allowed Jodi to show up at Travis's house unannounced, sometimes using the password to enter through the garage, and one time even using the doggy door to sleep on his sofa. And when it came to these reoccurring break-ins, sometimes Travis would express anger. Other times, however, well, he saw an advantage to having some alone time with his ex. In fact, he even eventually hired Jodi to clean around the house as his part-time maid with benefits.
It was very much a mutual thing. He would send me these little code text messages like Z's ... which meant I'm getting sleepy, coast is clear, come on over.
But while Travis saw their occasional trysts as no strings attached, for Jodi, there were indeed strings. Yes, if anything, Jodi's devotion to Travis had grown stronger through their breakup, and she had begun showcasing this in increasingly volatile ways. For example, when Travis began courting fellow Mormon, 18-year-old Lisa Andrews, Jodi allegedly began knocking on Lisa's doors and windows at night and slashing Travis's tires on 2 separate occasions when he visited Lisa's house. One morning, Lisa even awoke to an anonymous email after Travis spent the night on her couch that she believed was from Jodi, as it stated God would punish her for her behavior. Yet, despite the seemingly uncontrollable nature of Jodi's outbursts, Travis was somehow able to convince his ex that it was in her best interest to move back in with her parents and grandparents in Wairika, California. And so, the tumultuous relationship appeared to have come to a close as Travis began pursuing a Mormon woman named Mary Mimi Hall, while Jodi started her own romance with a man from Utah, Ryan Burns. Still, the lines of communication between Travis and Jodi remained precariously open. On May 2nd, 2008, Travis posted a message on Jodi's MySpace, writing, "I wonder how much you raised the hotness level of Wairika all by yourself, factoring in its per capita hot stats before you came. I am sure it has raised exponentially." And if this message was flirtatious, Travis and Jodi's phone calls were downright hot and heavy. As for how we know that, well, Jodi recorded these conversations, something she later claimed Travis asked her to do. And that meant their graphic discussions of their past escapades.
You have the most incredible stamina that I've ever even dreamed of encountering.
And fantasies.
I'm gonna tie you to a tree.
Oh my gosh. That is so debasing. I like it.
Wouldn't remain private for long. Yet, even separated by states, the volatility of their relationship remained simmering below the surface. And by late May 2008, this tension was on full display over G-chat and text, as the two fought over an occurrence that, while never directly stated throughout the messages, suggested irreconcilable differences. "I don't want your apology. I want you to understand what I think of you. I want you to understand how evil I think you are. You are the worst thing that has ever happened to me," Travis wrote Jodi. "You don't know what horror you have caused me." In her reply, Jodi wrote that it wasn't really her intention to harm him, a sentiment Travis didn't seem to buy, as he proceeded to call her a sociopath and the lowest of the low. And with that, it seemed any hope of positive correspondence between Travis and Jodi had become lost. So, the two continued on their separate paths. Travis planned for his all-expense-paid company retreat to Cancun in June 2008, a trip he had originally planned to bring Jodi on, but was now taking Mimi in an attempt to win her over. As for Jodi, well, that same month, she was taking off on a road trip to Salt Lake City to meet up with her current flame, Ryan Burns. So, despite the troubling statements made by Travis,
he would come home and he said, "You know, don't be surprised if you find me one day."
That could be seen as dark premonitions.
We don't know what day is our final day here on this earth. But what is for certain is that tomorrow is one day closer.
It seemed Travis and Jodi's relationship had ended not with a bang, but a whimper, and everyone who forecasted a tragic end could breathe a sigh of relief.
I think a lot of people thought at that point, great, it's done. Time for each of you to get on with your lives.
But in June, days before his trip to Mexico, Travis suddenly became unreachable. No call, no text, no email to the 30-year-old received a response, and his friends had become worried, especially Mimi Hall, who hadn't heard a word from Travis despite their approaching trip. So on June 9th, the day before they were scheduled to leave for Mexico, Mimi and two of Travis's friends decided to pay him a visit. And what they would discover at his home that spring night in Mesa, Arizona, well, it wasn't for the faint of heart. Mimi and Travis's friends were greeted by one of Travis's roommates, along with a strong odor permeating throughout the house. The roommate unlocked the door to Travis's room upstairs, and he, along with another friend, entered. Immediately, they noticed the carpet was soaked with red fluid, a trail that continued down the hall and into the bathroom, where the floor, walls, and sink were all splattered with crimson. They then looked in the shower, and that's where they found Travis, curled up in a pool of his vital fluid. It was clear that he was already gone, and had been, investigators would soon discover, for 5 days. The 30-year-old had been struck with a blade over 24 times, including along the neck from ear to ear in a near decapitation. And in what appeared to be a case of overkill, Travis also had a bullet wound to the head, which the coroner's report would later suggest occurred at the end of the attack. The roommate and Travis's friend ran out of the room, repeating the news. Travis was no longer with them. Immediately, Mimi called 911.
What's going on? A friend of ours is in his bedroom and he hasn't heard from him for a while.
She then handed the phone over to the friend that had entered the room who described the gruesome scene.
He's in his bedroom, in the shower.
Okay, how did this happen? Do you have any idea?
No, we have no idea. Everyone's been wondering about him for a few days.
She said that there's... So is it coming from his head? Did he...
It's all over the place.
But who could have done this? It wasn't like Travis owed someone money. He wasn't involved in any shady business. He didn't have enemies. Well, then again, that wasn't exactly true.
Been threatened by anyone recently? Yes, he has. He has an ex-girlfriend that's been bothering him and following him and slashing tires and things like that. Her name is Jodi.
And as law enforcement began investigating the scene, that was a name they would hear over and over again as friends, colleagues, and family members made one thing clear. They needed to speak with Miss Arias. On July 15th, 2008, Jodi sat in the interrogation room in Wairika, California, with all the grace of a restless teenager. 1 hour into the detention, as she rested her head on the table, moved to sit on the floor against the wall, and flipped her hair. This wasn't the demeanor you'd expect from a woman that had been indicted for the first-degree ending of her ex-boyfriend's life just days before. Yet, when Jodi was read her rights by Mesa Police homicide detective Esteban Flores, she was equally subdued.
Everybody's pointing a finger at you.
I know.
You know, everybody is saying, I don't understand what happened to Travis. I don't know him. But you need to look at Jodi.
So what did Jodi have to say? Well, from her perspective, this suspicion was unfounded.
I've had worse issues with other people. They're all still alive. I'm still friends with my ex-boyfriends. They're all still alive.
Sure, her move to Mesa, Arizona weeks after their breakup might have looked crazy from the outside, but it had already been in the works. In fact, Jodi claimed it was Travis who convinced her to follow through on the relocation by telling her about the perks of living in Mesa. As for their relationship, well, Travis hadn't exactly given the impression he was seeing other people.
At the time that he was seeing Lisa, did you continue to see him as well?
Yeah, and I didn't know that he was seeing her.
However, when he did allegedly confide in her about Mimi, Jodi wasn't jealous. No. According to the ex, she was thrilled.
He said that he's not sure why, but he's pretty sure that she could be it. And I was happy for him.
Even when it came to Travis, Jodi seemed to hold no animosity towards her ex, despite what Detective Flores seemed to be implying.
He's what you call a player. You know what that means? Yeah. He kind of pulls girls in.
Anybody, though.
Yet, it was clear from the conversations he had that Detective Flores believed Travis had hurt somebody. He'd hurt Jodi, and the ex had reacted in this pain in increasingly bizarre ways.
There were some people who I talked to and said, yeah, they continued to have a relationship even after they broke up. And there are others who were saying that you had become obsessive with him to the point to where you would go into his house when he wasn't there or when you weren't invited, and he would talk to people saying, you know, she just kind of showed up. I don't want to tell her to leave, but you know, I don't want her here.
But of course, it wasn't Jodi's unreciprocated feelings that had warranted her arrest. No, that had to do with some other pieces of evidence law enforcement had dug up. See, Jodi had an alibi for the day that Travis lost his life. She was driving to Salt Lake City to see Ryan Burns. Instead of taking her own bright red vehicle, Jodi had rented a car for the occasion from a spot in Redding, California, oddly out of the way from her home in Wairika. She'd also changed up her look before the trip, dyeing her hair dark brown. And then, during the drive, her cell phone conveniently ran out of batteries, just long enough for her to, theoretically, drive through Arizona undetected.
I pulled your cell records. Your cell phone was turned off between here and here.
But Detective Flores wasn't just suspicious that Jodi had visited Travis on June 4th. He was certain.
At Travis's house, you guys had a sexual encounter, which there's pictures. And I know you know there's pictures because I have them.
Yep, it seemed whoever had taken Travis's life had also attempted to dispose of some evidence in the laundry machine, a camera to be precise. But washing away evidence, even literally, isn't so easily done, especially when a memory card is involved. After all, deleting the photos from the camera, along with the cycle in the wash, didn't stop investigators from recovering the images that were on the device. And the story these pictures told? Well, it was certainly compelling. X-rated photos of both Jodi and Travis confirmed that not only had Jodi been at his home on June 4th, but that they had been intimate. Following that, the memory card confirmed that the amateur photography session went to the shower, where Jodi snapped photos of Travis as water poured down his face. Then, there was what appeared to be an accidental shot that captured the bathroom ceiling, door frame, and shower door in blurry focus. And the next photo, again seemingly taken by mistake, exposed the beginnings of the scene that would be discovered 5 days later. There in the background was Travis, with red fluid streaming down his body, and in the foreground, the foot of the guilty party. Then there was the last photo, where it appeared Travis's body was being dragged across the floor, incriminating stuff. Yet, for every accusation launched Jodi's way,
You hurt him. That's why we're here.
she had one defense in her arsenal that came down to 3 words: deny,
I didn't hurt Travis. He's done so much for me.
deny.
And the camera actually took a couple of photos by accident during the time he was being.
Really?
Yeah, Jodi, really. You were there. Quit playing this game.
Deny.
That's you. All of you.
That looks like me.
Even when Detective Flores revealed to Jodi that her vital fluid mixed with Travis's, her hair, and her stained left palm print had all been discovered at the scene, Jodi was full of excuses. Her hair was all over the home because she was there all the time. Her vital fluid was there because she'd once picked up glass. The palm print? Well, she couldn't explain that, but there had to have been a non-criminal reason. And while Detective Flores didn't buy the innocent act,
There's no doubt in my mind that you did this. None. So you can go until you're blue in the face and tell me you weren't there and you had nothing to do with it. I won't believe you. I will not believe you. Because Travis is telling me that you did this to him. That's my job. My job is to speak for him.
through a nearly 3-hour interrogation, Jodi refused to let up.
I have to maintain my innocence. I can't admit to doing something that I haven't done.
So Jodi was arrested, and unfortunately for Travis's ex, her days of civilian privileges were through.
This is a really trivial question, and it's going to reveal how shallow I am. But before they book me, can I clean myself up a little bit?
You're going to be taken the way you are.
But while this inconvenience might have briefly upset Jodi,
Should have just done your makeup, Jodi. Gosh.
by the end of the interrogation, her strange, untroubled demeanor was back as she sang Here With Me by Dido and Oh Holy Night, dug through the garbage, did a handstand against the wall, and even laughed to herself. However, by the next day, Jodi's story had changed. In her second interrogation, Jodi repeatedly ignored questions as she gathered her thoughts.
Just trying to think.
She repeatedly asked to see the photos that had been recovered from the camera.
The reason I asked was because I just feel like it might help me piece some things together. And this is more of a selfish reason. I think it might give me some sense of closure. Can I please see those photos? Is there any way I can see those pictures?
But then, finally, it seemed Jodi was ready to speak.
What happened to me today and from here on out, if I just told you every single detail that I know? And I gave you a confession?
Nothing else changes. It just speeds up the process.
Jodi admitted she had visited Travis at his home in Mesa, Arizona on June 4th, that they'd been intimate and taken photos, and that this photo shoot had moved to the shower, leading to results she reflected on proudly.
Some of you looked really good. I thought the one that you showed me yesterday of him looking right at you, I think that's a great picture.
But that's when Jodi's story strayed from the investigation's current theory. She claimed her photography session had been interrupted by 2 masked intruders, one male and one female, who immediately took aim at Travis.
I don't really know what happened after that exactly, except I think he was shot.
Jodi recalled running into the closet when she was stopped by the male assailant, who held a firearm to her head and told her something that informed her behavior in the following days.
He said, if you ever say anything about this, they'll do to my family the same way and me. He said, you need to leave. And don't you call anybody, you say anything, you act like anything happened.
Jodi claimed that she hadn't told authorities because she feared these criminals would make good on their promise, as they'd taken her driver's license from her purse with her P.O. box on it. But despite the Hollywood blockbuster-worthy tension Jodi had created through her retelling, Detective Flores wasn't in the mood for another one of Miss Arias' tall tales.
I came in here hoping that you would tell me the truth. And this is not the truth, Jodi.
This is all I know.
Does not make any sense.
Yet, in interviews with various television broadcasters, this was the story Jodi stuck with.
Travis being attacked by 2 other individuals.
Did he have any enemies at all?
To my knowledge, no.
I just can't think of a single soul.
I don't know who they were. I couldn't pick them out in a police lineup.
And as Jodi embellished the details of this night,
he pulled the trigger and nothing happened, just a click.
Took the effort to make herself camera ready.
I'm glad to see this is waterproof. I don't plan to cry, but, I probably won't.
And made grandiose statements.
I know that I'm innocent. God knows I'm innocent. Travis knows I'm innocent.
It seemed the ex-girlfriend was at least confident in the veracity of her own version of events.
No jury is going to convict me.
Why not?
Because I'm innocent, and you can mark my words on that one. No jury will convict me.
Which made it all the more strange when Jodi changed her story ahead of the trial for a 3rd and final time. After all, this was a switch that came with high stakes, as the prosecution had made one thing abundantly clear. In the case of Jodi Arias, they were seeking the death penalty. In January 2013, cable networks and online streams broadcast the inner happenings of Maricopa County Supreme Court in a trial the New York Times would come to describe as a soap opera.
It is promised to be filled with testimony about religion and details of this gruesome death.
And between graphic photos shown in court to the hour-long recording of Jodi and Travis's intimate phone conversation, these promised sordid details were more than delivered on throughout the trial. As for the contrasting narratives the trial hinged on, the prosecution, led by attorney Juan Martinez, argued there was only one person responsible for what happened to Travis Alexander.
This is not a case of who done it. The person who done it, the person who committed this, sits in court today.
That person, of course, was Jodi Arias, a woman that had sung Travis's praises.
He was a good man, according to her.
Before allegedly seducing him, stalking him, and taking his life in a jealous rage after learning he was seeing other women.
She slit his throat as a reward for being a good man.
However, the defense, made up of attorneys Lawrence Nurmi and Jennifer Wilmot, argued that Travis was neither a good man nor was he a good Mormon. Instead, he was the type of person that had pushed Jodi into being his dirty little secret that he could use and discard as he pleased.
Pretty indisputable that he was having a with this woman that got pretty heated and obviously even involved pictures.
It was Travis, they argued, that had pressured Jodi to stay in contact after she moved back to California. Travis who forced Jodi to wear a t-shirt that clearly made her his property. And Travis, who requested she wear a French-made outfit to clean his home. And according to the defense, Jodi wasn't just Travis's fantasy, she was also an outlet for his rage. But it wasn't until the day Travis's life was taken that Jodi fought back.
And on June 4th of 2008, it had reached a point of no return.
Yep, Jodi had admitted to taking Travis's life, but only in self-defense. And on February 4th, in a surprise twist, Jodi took the witness stand where she would defend her actions for the next 18 days of the trial. According to Jodi, the catalyst of the incident was when she dropped Travis's camera and he responded by charging at her like a linebacker, a move prosecutor Juan Martinez requested Jodi demonstrate for the courtroom.
He got down and...
Well, show me the linebacker pose. That's what I'm asking for you to do.
Okay. He went like that and he turned his head and grabbed my waist.
Just like that, correct?
Pretty much.
Jodi broke free and then ran into the closet where she grabbed a firearm from the top shelf that she'd previously noticed when cleaning Travis's home. He came running at her, at which point she aimed the firearm at him.
I thought that would stop him. If someone were pointing at me, I would stop.
But Travis didn't stop, at least not according to Jodi. That's when she alleged she unintentionally pulled the trigger and he fell on top of her.
And after I broke away from him, he said,
The next thing she remembered, she was driving barefoot through the desert, heading westward. The only reminder of what happened was the firearm on her lap that she threw out the window and crimson stains on her hands that she washed off with a water bottle from her truck.
Do you remember dragging him across the floor?
Oh.
Do you remember placing him in the shower?
She then drove to Ryan Burns' house in Utah, where she stayed that night, using the drive to leave Travis a voicemail that would place her away from the crime scene. As for why she hadn't told the truth to the police, well, Jodi claimed she wanted to protect Travis's reputation. After all, if she was to tell the truth, she had to tell the full truth, and she'd then have to publicly reveal Travis's alleged perversions. Yes, in front of the jury, courtroom, and Travis's grieving family, Jodi alleged she caught her ex-boyfriend viewing CP, a claim that naturally led to doubts from the jury over Jodi's character as well.
Why would you continue to sleep with Travis after you learned of issues?
I had seen prior to this incident many beautiful qualities about him and good qualities about him and things that were attractive about him. And I believed that this incident was a negative part of himself that he didn't want to foster or that he was fighting or struggling against and that he ultimately wanted to eradicate.
And then there were the holes the prosecution poked in Jodi's defense. From a firearm that had gone missing from Jodi's grandparents' home on May 28, 2008, a cleanup effort that suggested Jodi wasn't blacked out, but calculated, and 3 5-gallon gas cans that allowed Jodi to travel through Arizona undetected, despite her claim she returned the third purchase.
Would it surprise you that Walmart does not have any record of any refund for a gas can on that date of June 3rd of 2008?
Considering that I returned it, that would surprise me.
The jury had to question, was Jodi's crime not one of self-defense or passion, but part of a premeditated plan? And then, of course, there were the photos that, according to their timestamps, seemed to make Jodi's timeline of events impossible.
And what you're telling us, under your scenario, is that in 62 seconds, you get body slammed, you run down the hallway, you go in the closet, you grab a gun, you back up, you shoot Mr. Alexander, you pick up the camera because you said there's only possibility, and he's already down the hallway with his throat.
Certainly, the evidence against Jodi cast doubt over her testimony, but was it enough for the jury to convict her? And more importantly, was it enough to sentence her to death? On May 13, 2013, Jodi was found guilty of premeditated homicide.
We, the jury, duly impaneled and sworn, in the above entitled action, upon our oaths, do find the defendant as to count 1, first-degree murder, guilty.
And from the interview with Fox, 20 minutes after the verdict was read, it seemed Jodi was in a state of shock.
I don't know. I just feel overwhelmed. The whole time I was fairly confident I wouldn't get premeditation because there was no premeditation.
But while Jodi claimed she would gratefully accept the death penalty at this point,
I said years ago that I'd rather get death than life, and that still is true today. I believe death is the ultimate freedom, so I'd rather just have my freedom as soon as I can get it.
In the coming days, her belief that passing away was the ultimate freedom wavered as, in yet another twist, Jodi pleaded for her life. She told the jury about the good she could do while serving a sentence in prison, including implementing a recycling program, donating her hair, teaching sign language, and helping any illiterate inmates learn to read. She also planned to start selling t-shirts with the word survivor written across the chest.
This is the t-shirt, which 100% of the proceeds go to support nonprofit organizations which also assist other victims.
Prior to her sentencing, ABC's Ryan Owens asked Jodi a series of hard-hitting questions.
Nobody believes what I'm saying anyway.
You said it right there, no one believes a word out of your mouth. Why do you keep talking?
That pointed to the hypocrisy of Jodi's statements in court.
You said today you want to give Travis's family closure. You know they want you, so why don't you give them that closure?
Why don't I kill myself? Is that what you're asking?
No, why don't you accept the fate of the death penalty if you know that's what they want?
But in the end, that decision was in the hands of the jury, a group that on May 24th was deadlocked with 8 in favor and 4 opposed. With no other choice, the judge declared a mistrial, leading to a second trial that again resulted in a jury that couldn't reach a unanimous decision on the death penalty. As a result, Jodi's life was spared. As for her sentence, that was in the hands of Judge Sherry Steffens, who settled on life without the possibility of parole. On top of her sentence, Jodi was also ordered to pay the Alexander family $32,000 to offset travel expenses. But despite Jodi currently serving life,
can you tell me about your plans for what you're going to do behind bars for life?
her legacy lives on in more ways than one. While it might be no surprise that prosecutor Juan Martinez, who was disbarred in 2020 following SH allegations from multiple women, continued to drop bombshells involving Jodi's case, including claims that were never heard in court, that a firearm, a blade, and condoms were found in her rental car.
It made no sense to believe that an individual who is absolutely defenseless and doesn't even have any clothing would have attacked her, and she would have been appropriately prepared.
Jodi's own defense also turned on the client following the trial, specifically attorney Lawrence Nurmi, who wrote a tell-all book, Trapped with Mrs. Arias, that led to him too being disbarred, as well as a civil suit from Jodi for breaking attorney-client privilege. Lawrence Nurmi has gone on to accuse Jodi of treating him like a boyfriend when he represented her.
I certainly saw elements of manipulative behavior in terms of her interactions with me.
Reveal that he didn't believe in his client's innocence.
I had filed a motion to withdraw from the case, and ultimately the judge decided to deny that motion.
And further discredit her claims.
I think my book was an ethical response to some of the lies she told about me afterwards. Obviously, Miss Arias is a world-renowned liar.
Still, there are those who have stuck by Jodi's side, including her parents that, despite some telling statements made at the beginning of the investigation,
Jodi has mental problems. I've had quite a few of her friends call me and tell me that I needed to get her some help.
Now she's a strange person.
You know, maybe she did do it. I don't know. I just cannot even imagine her doing it.
stood by their daughter over the years by endorsing sites like justiceforjodi.com that work to raise money for an appeal fund.
Hi everyone. We'd like to thank you for donating at justiceforjodi.com and for helping us with the continued efforts to raise money to obtain the best legal representation possible for our daughter's appeals.
In fact, there's a whole community of people who believe Jodi is innocent and support her through donations or buying from her official art gallery, where fans can get their hands on their own Jodi original. Jodi has even inspired TikTok users to create fan cams using photos and jailhouse interviews that glamorize the criminal.
Pictures in the paper today.
Oh, was it a big picture or a little picture?
It's a little picture.
Oh, under bookings?
Yeah, no, it's on the front page.
No way! I'm on the front page news of the 60 Daily News.
As for what Jodi's life currently looks like, well, according to those who brushed paths with her, the supposed temptress has continued to hone her manipulation skills behind bars. In 2018, Jodi's former cellmate, Tracy Brown, spoke to the media about her time served with Jodi. Tracy claimed she'd become close to Jodi in prison, evidenced by the art she bought from her, and the 6 tattoos Tracy had allowed her to brand her with, using mascara and pencil lead fashioned into a makeshift needle. The supposed bond they'd formed in prison even resulted in Jodi confiding in the cellmate about not only hiding in bushes in Travis's backyard to watch him,
And if she was ever caught, she would tell him she was there to get her Social Security card.
But confessing that she had planned to take a life on June 4th, 2008, not just Travis's.
She went there hoping to find this other woman and because she took her place.
Tracy's now wife and then fellow inmate Donovan Bering also became friends with Jodi during this time. She recalled Jodi would use her looks to her advantage in prison.
She got away with things that other inmates didn't get away with. She was a very attractive young girl who liked to flirt, and the male guards just ate it up.
Still, they became friends, and upon release, she handled Jodi's social media to show her fans her art and what she was reading. However, when Jodi allegedly told Donovan to post destructive and hurtful statements about her parents on social media, despite Donovan witnessing the way Jodi mistreated her mother behind bars, she refused and ended the friendship. And now that both Donovan and Tracy are finally out of Jodi's orbit, they can see the kind of person Jodi truly is.
Is Jodi pure evil?
Absolutely.
Currently, Jodi is serving her sentence at the Perryville State Women's Prison in Goodyear, Arizona, where she's worked as a library aide since 2018. And while Jodi has been able to smile for the cameras, despite the horrors she committed, at night, her screams and cries echo from her cell, haunted by something she can't fully recall.
I don't have memories of the nightmares, so I'm not sure what I'm dreaming about.
It's here she will spend the remainder of her natural-born life. Jodi Arias took the life of the person she once claimed to love, and rather than tell the truth,
I know something horrible happened that day. Absolutely horrible. Something that could have been avoided.
She lied, not once, not twice, but if the verdict is to be trusted, 3 times.
So you really are never going to tell the truth about what went down in that bathroom?
I don't know what you mean by that, because I've told the truth.
Okay.
I didn't know that you were a hater.
Thankfully, she'll have a lifetime in prison to come to terms with what really happened that day on June 4th, 2008.
There's no way that I could possibly make up entirely for what I've done. So all I can do is do what I can. And the idea is that grace fulfills the rest.
This is the story of Jodi Arias, the ex-girlfriend that refused to let go.